Alrighty, we're live. Hello and welcome to another MTAG live episode. This week it's just the two of us, Jesse and myself. And look, before I jump in and introduce Jesse and say hello to him, I'm gonna throw out a bit of an advert first. So, look, More Than a Game is going to be joining in Soccer Aid next week. Now, look, Soccer Aid is the brainchild of Round Ball Project. And we're going to be joined by Destruction in the Box, the Ladies League, Striptease, and the Soccer Podcast. We're also going to be joined by the talented and very likable Daniel Garb, who's going to be joining us as a special guest. Now, it's raising support of a couple of very good causes. You've got the Dylan Tombides Foundation, the John Moriarty Football Foundation, and the Regan Milstein Foundation. So there is a GoFundMe that's up and running. And, of course, all of those pods and Striptease isn't a pod, but all of those will be jumping in next week for Soccer Aid at 7 p.m. on Friday. So do tune in. But most of all, please donate if you can. Look, Jesse, sorry to keep you waiting, mate, but here we are. It's a weeknight. What did you have for dinner tonight?
Mate, I had some fish. Some
Are you having a beer? Are you having a beer for dinner?
I've had the beer. I'm just about to bunker down with one of these porters. Just some fish, some rice, some salad. Just your classic midweek meal. I guess we could almost say it's an end of week meal now. Getting pretty close to the weekend, and as I'm sure we're about to discuss, there's some pretty exciting football on the horizon.
There is. The festival of football is kind of almost over, but we're about to, kicking into, round two of the football festival. So, first of all, question from Sal, superfan Sal, to kick us off before we get into any of our football-related stuff. He wants to know if Bunker's any good.
What? Jeez, that's speed. I mean, that's impressive. Well, he actually asked the question before I'd even had a sip, so that's incredible efficiency. So it is delicious. Yeah, I've only had one sip so far, but I'll let you know close to the bottom of the can.
Very good. All right, let's get into some football though. Look, first up, we're gonna go through a couple of transfers that are not necessarily. Well, in fact, this first one has been confirmed, I believe. In fact, it did have a pretty eccentric reveal video as well. This one involved a little bit of skydiving. It reminded me a little bit of that Braga video that we shared on Twitter a couple of weeks ago as well. But this one is Trent Sainsbury to Belgium. Now he's going to. Oh, geez, I'm going to butcher this, I know, but KV Kortrijk, sure?
Yeah, nailed it.
Team I've never heard of before. They finished 11th last year in the Belgian league. But curiously, they are owned by Vincent Tan, who some of you might remember used to be the ex-Cardiff owner. Mega rich, I think Malaysian guy. So, Jesse, you got any thoughts on this as a move?
Well, what colour's their strip? Because he managed to try and change. Was it Cardiff City to red?
Cardiff, yeah. The Bluebirds became red because red's like a lucky colour in Malaysia. I think wasn't it?
That was an absolute debacle. It was almost like going to a Melbourne City game and then half the crowd's in Melbourne Heart jumpers. It was an absolute debacle.
That is a good comparison.
Let's hope he doesn't do the same thing in Belgium. I mean, how long has he been there? That's the question. I don't even know how long he's owned the club.
Well, curiously enough, so Vincent Tan, this is funny, we're talking more about Vincent Tan than we are about Trent Sainsbury. But Vincent Tan, he bought Kortrijk in 2015. And this is interesting as well for an A-League context as well. He bought it for €5 million, which like every so often you hear an A-League club and how much you think about they're actually worth, and people will talk about them being in the 10, like at least 10 million. So the fact that they're this mid-tier Belgian team who, like, I think a lot of people in Australia would probably like to compare a lot of A-League teams to sort of some of these mid-tier European teams. To the fact that this team got bought out, 5 years ago for €5 million. There you go.
Amazing.
But what about Trent going to Belgium? You think it's good for him?
Yeah, it's interesting seeing the players go in different directions. Obviously, a lot of talk has been about Kakachi going to Belgium and seeing what happens after the A-League finals are finished. But it's really interesting, this link that's growing more and more between the, I guess you could say almost a little bit to do with the Netherlands league as well. But the Dutch and Belgian league seem to this connection with Australian players is growing, which I guess another discussion point is this a good thing for our footballers, or I guess for the national team at least?
Mm. And the Danish league as well has had a bunch of Australians head over there in the last few years as well. And I guess to answer your question, Jesse, I think it's a great idea, because I think sometimes it can be a real challenge, a big step up for Australians or Kiwis to go from the A-League to say the German league. And we saw a goalkeeper whose name escapes me go from Melbourne Victory to Dortmund, and he didn't really do a hell of a lot. I think he played probably half a dozen games or something in 5 years. And Robbie Cruz, he did pretty well I think he was at Leverkusen for a little while, which was actually pretty massive, really, when you think about it, looking back. But once he struggled to get a starting spot, then he kind of bounced around a little bit between some different German clubs, and it became really difficult for him to nail down a spot anywhere. Injuries, I think, played a bit of a role there, but I think going to a maybe a mid-tier European league and getting plenty of minutes under your belt, getting used to a different climate, getting used to a different culture, not just as a footballer but as a young person as well, I think it can only be good.
Well, I mean, our Sunday league last year really benefited from a bit of Dutch magic, some Danish flair. It's a learning curve playing with players from all over the world, so it can only be a good thing.
Look, and it's just as difficult coming the other way.
Yeah, they learn a lot from us.
Yeah, sure. Look, one other big move, which, look, to be honest, I thought it sounded like it was pretty much a done deal, was Tommie Rogic headed from Celtic to Qatar, which might have surprised a few people. I mean, I'm not surprised to hear that he's maybe leaving. I think he's 27. He's had seven good years in Scotland, and judging from Celtic Twitter, they've been pretty happy with him, but it sent a bit of a development or a twist in this story with the Daily Mail, who, like, from memory, aren't particularly reputable. They've linked him with a move to Brighton, which would see him link up with Moy and Matty Ryan, which would be huge.
It's gonna be a difficult strategy for Graham Potter to manage when he's got Lallana, Cruyff turning in a circle, potentially Rogic, Cruyff turning in a circle, and Moy just dribbling around in circles. I mean, are they going to be able to advance over the halfway line with those three players in the same 11?
Maybe that's a strategy that they do all of those things just to keep the ball away from the opposition, and if they go up 1-0, yep. Be like tiki-taka all over again as like a defensive tactic.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Brighton's the new Barca. Barca's dead.
Anyway, let's move on. Look, it's been a pretty wild week. Obviously, we've had the A-League regular season wrap up. We also know who is going to be playing in our elimination finals. But before we get into the A-League and before Jesse and I wrap that up, I just want to do a quick birthday shout out to Ali Dia, who's 54 years young today. Some of you might be thinking, who's that? Well, Ali Dia was the fella in the mid-90s who made a complete fool out of Graham Souness, went on trial, managed to convince him that he was a genuine footballer when he was not a genuine footballer, had sort of bounced around a couple of non-league clubs and so on and so forth, and somehow made it on during a competitive game and then was substituted off after about 40 minutes. He was later released from the club once pretty much everyone realised that the guy was a complete fraud. So,
wow.
Look, Jesse, there is still hope for us yet that you and I could still turn pro, you know.
Mate, do a bit of work. We could maybe slip into the Iranian women's team. These sort of things you have to sort of make a few sacrifices, but I'm sure that we could sort of, pull a few strings. And you've seen that photo, haven't you? That's one of the all-time classics. I think it's the Iranian women's team, and it's got like three blokes in there. It's so funny.
Most of the Adam's apples are bigger than mine. Wow.
It's incredible. But that's the kind of level of fraud that you need to slip past the system.
Indeed. All right, enough bullshit. Let's get into the A-League, and we're going to start off with last night's match, which was Melbourne City playing Western United in the final match of the season. Both teams had already qualified for the finals, so both teams kind of decided to pretty much play the kids. It was a well taken first goal for Melbourne City for Moody Najjar, and he
Mbappe celebration.
Yeah, you liked that, did you?
Yeah. Just love how blokes just left, right, and centre do that celebration now. It's just like, come on, mate.
For his first ever goal.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. And that preceded J-Mac's match and Golden Boot deciding 2 goals. Brescia did make things interesting towards the end in both the match and the Golden Boot race, but ultimately the big bad Woof huffed and puffed and couldn't blow down City's straw house defence. So, look, this was a bit of a strange way to finish the season with both teams not really having much riding on it. Both teams obviously pretty happy just to make the finals, not have any key players get injured, and then look forward to playing finals. In City's case, not this weekend, but City will play their first finals game next Wednesday. City ended up finishing the season only 6 points behind Sydney. So in some respects, I think City might have been a little bit disappointed with some of their form sort of throughout the season. Because, I mean, if there was a couple of games where like they dropped points from pretty winnable positions, like such as the Adelaide game last week, and also when they played Brisbane. Do you remember that game against Brisbane where it was blowing a gale and they were up 3-0 at halftime, and then they just coughed up 3 goals in the second half? And
that's right,
like, straight up there between those 2 matches, where in both games they were just sailing well off into the distance. They dropped 4 points, so straight up is 4 points. But look, City still finished in second place. They're still going to be playing Asian Champions League next year, so good for them. Brisha also was on the bench, and I reckon he would have been absolutely filthy, because we all know how competitive he is. I reckon he would have been, he would have been sending daggers towards Mark Rudin pretty much the whole game while he was sitting there on the bench, just itching to get on.
That's right. And indeed he did. Eventually.
Yeah. In fact, it was kind of like, well, especially after City had just sort of lost that lead last week against Adelaide, you sort of thought to yourself, oh, are they going to shit the bed here? Could Berisha, a really hungry Berisha who's chasing the Golden Boot, could he just sort of sneak in and jag another goal, level the match up, and then have a little bit of a shootout in the last final 15 minutes between him and J-Mac for the Golden Boot?
It was a case of the City, the Woo, and the Golden Shoe, and J-Mac came out on top. But what just a bizarre situation to be in, I guess, because how Bez got in the mix in the first place was pretty impressive considering the different runs and form. And an interesting thing on City you were mentioning before, it just seems like an eternity ago that J-Mac was just dominating the goal scoring charts at the start of the season, and it's really interesting with City and Sydney because these points, you were talking about the points that they left behind, but all the points scored at the start of the season, look how important it has been at the back end of this finals series. I mean, the Phoenix have been on a slump and I think they're still finished 3rd. I mean, these teams that have done well at the first half of the season pre-COVID, it has made a difference. Yeah,
and there's a follow-up question about, I guess, the Woo and how they responded to the to sort of the post-COVID restart as well. But we'll come to that in a little bit. One player who I thought was a little bit of a surprise this season, and I think he was he was my nominated boy, was Rami Najarine. I don't know if you even remember who I'm talking about, Jesse. Yeah, no.
Has the tapes got confirmed? Confirmed dotted line signature of him being your boy, or?
Look, I'm confident enough to go on the record now to say he was my boy. But look, the bloke barely played this season. I don't think he started a game. He came on in the 25th minute, in the 75th minute, and I thought to myself, oh yeah, I forgot about him. And if you remember back to, do you remember back to, geez, when did we start? October last year. Feels like a very long time ago. And they threw out that brand new marketing campaign for the A-League, which was Where Heroes Are Born.
Where they spent 80% of the budget in the first video. Yep.
Yeah, and then they couldn't play it on any sort of media. But Remy Nazarene, actually, he was in the clip. And I remember at the time thinking, oh, geez, like someone somewhere reckons he's about to blow up, and he just never did, which was a bit disappointing. But I guess it's been a crazy year for a lot of people, including Remy Nazarene.
He's now Damari Gray. It's next year. Next year's going to be his year.
He's the new Kamau.
Yeah, he's the new Kamau. That's right.
Oh dear. But look, one person who has turned it on this season and doesn't need another year to prove that he's good was Diamanti, and he wrapped up or was awarded the Alex Tobin medal in the aftermath of this one. Finished the season with 25 points. Look, to be honest, I don't know what the scoring regime is for the Alex Tobin medal. I'm going to assume it's 3-2-1. I know that Fox Sports give it though, and they're basically the ones that decide it. Riley McCree and Castro were the ones that finished second. Now, that's pretty wild when you consider Diego Castro didn't play any of the games after restart. So do you think that there's going to be a bit of an asterisk next to Diamanti and his Alex Tobin medal, or do you think he's earned it?
I just remember talking about Diamanti with you guys, like all of us, when we used to be able to go to the pub. Remember those days? I remember us watching those early Woo games and marveling about them. As of I'm sure many of the listeners and A-League fans would have back then as well. Anyway, so I don't think I think it's testament to how good Castro was pre the COVID break, but and McCree's been good all year. But I mean, if you were just a person who just parachuted into the league this year and you just watched the season, I think that most people would agree that Diamanti was the best player, the most influential player, because I think that's the key. It's good that it's gone to a midfielder sort of / forward, because sometimes it's not necessarily just a striker who's influential. It's somebody who's the pivot and the key in the team, and he's the key for them.
Exactly right. He's been a real pleasure to watch. I'm just amazed that Riley McCree could get that many points for Adelaide. I mean, at Fox Sports, they must be able to distinguish Riley McCree from all of the other lookalikes that are at the club, which, I mean, that's I take my hat off to Fox that they can do that in the first place.
They obviously turn a blind eye to bad behaviour as well. Big bad Riley.
That's true. Less said about that, the better. J-Mac obviously was awarded the Golden Boot after this match as well, which the guys on Fox were saying that like it's ridiculous that they're awarding it now, because it means that the Golden Boot gets awarded even when there's still matches to be played in the finals. What do you think about that? Do you think that should be awarded now or wait?
It's a bit of a quirk, isn't it? Because it makes sense for it to be awarded on the final day, but the A-League doesn't have a final day that has finals. So, yeah.
And even less so this year.
Yeah, I feel like, I'm a little bit undecided on it, because I think that I personally think that the minor premiership, or whatever you want to call it, the finishing first
Premier's
is a little
plate,
bit,
yeah.
Premier's plate's a little bit redundant. And that makes finishing up as the golden shoe at the end of the season a little bit redundant as well, like because of the finals. So I don't know. I guess I'd almost say put it into the finals, just add another little twist to what the finals campaign could be like. But in saying that, is that really fair? I don't know if it is.
And that's it. I think it's in some ways it comes down to, is it fair on players that aren't playing in finals, or is it just their fault and their team's fault that they're not playing finals so they can't score? So
yeah, it's a good point.
It's a bit like whether penalties should count or not.
Well, mate, Manchester United need to stay in business, mate. So
oh jeez,
outlaw penalties.
Mate, this is an Australian podcast. We're not going to go on. We're not going to go on another anti-Man United tirade like the other day. So
yeah, MTAG's done enough damage this week. So
all right, moving on though to we mentioned about the Premier's Plate, and obviously this year's Premier's Plate winners were Sydney. They lost during the week. In fact, they lost quite a few games. They hosted Western United a couple of days ago, and they they continued their bad post-restart form by losing 2-1 to the Woo. Sydney are in pretty horrendous form. They've won 1, drawn 2, and lost 3 since the restart about, a month or 6 weeks ago. Western United finished 4th, which is obviously a huge achievement for them and the team. And we talked about Diamante having won the Alex Tobin medal as well. In terms of the game, though, Berisha, he scored a tap-in after Redmayne skied Diamante shot from way, way, way out wide. And to be honest, I thought with this one, Redmayne could have done a lot better. It's one of those ones where the keeper makes a save, so it looks good, but if it's sort of parried directly back towards another player, then and they end up scoring from it, it's like, well, what's the point? You might as well just let it go in the first place.
Yeah.
Just 5 minutes later, and this was probably the highlight of the match, even though he didn't score. Diamante, after successfully chipping Liam Reddy twice the week before, he tried chipping Redmayne, this time from about 45 metres out, square on from pretty much halfway. He was well inside the centre circle at least. But Jesse, I haven't seen such a ridiculous piece of football in the A-League for quite some time, even though it didn't go in.
Yeah, it's just like I know it's not the same, but I just remember there's that patch in the 2013-14 season for Liverpool and Suarez, and I just remember there's a couple of goals that you look back at now where he's brimming with confidence and he takes a pot from like 35 yards over the keeper, and just different league, different environment. But I think the commonality is that the players brimming with confidence. And I think, again, another example was Hamas at the 2014 World Cup when he took that volley on the chest and stuff. It's like only players that have...
Sorry, just needed a moment then.
I just goosebumps. Shut it down. Only players...
Concentrate, sorry.
Only players that are in that kind of zone of confidence do that, like take a shot.
Yeah.
And the commentators knew it because, obviously you dinked the keeper the week before, but it's just a pleasure to watch.
People had the audacity last week to claim that he didn't mean it and that it was meant to be a cross. Well,
that's what that shot was for them.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it was a cracking moment. I mean, if that had been a goal, I mean, the A-League marketing would have to go back into the budget room and be like, well, we spent 80% on the opening video. We're going to have to spend another 80% on just playing that goal over and over again.
That would just be next season's promo video, just that played over as a loop for like 45 seconds or something. Let's face it, that's all you need, really, because that gets bums on seats, and that's why we've all enjoyed Diamante so much this season, because he's just been a lot of fun to watch, and the fact that we're talking about this now, and I mean, he didn't even score, it speaks volumes, I guess.
We should also mention about him his age. I mean, like it's like he's won the
37, isn't he?
He's 30, like. It gets sort of like, I don't think it's massively overlooked, but I don't think it necessarily is brought into the conversation that often. And like, let's be honest, I mean, like to do that at his age, class is permanent.
Yeah, and look, like, I mean, some people talk about sort of the A-League and that it may not necessarily be the same standard in quality terms, but if there's one thing that like you can't question, and that's the physical intensity of the league. Like it's quick and players are fit here, and it's hot as well, damn hot in summer. And the fact that he's been able to achieve everything that he's done in these conditions, and he's held up physically as well. He's in good shape, so he's done very, very well. But look, back to the game though. Lafondra ended up levelling things up from what looked like a kind of innocuous cross in about the 52nd minute. And the game looked level, destined to finish 1-1 as it headed into injury time. And then Steve Lustica popped up to score from a nice Western United counter attack. And it's probably a good time to talk about Steve Lustica, because I mean, when he first signed for the Woo, I think he was in Uzbekistan of all places, which is pretty random. I was first of all surprised, and then secondly, I thought, well, he's probably not going to play that much. He's a good squad player, but I actually think he's been really, really good for them since the restart.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny actually because it's funny how you can watch the same goal and see different things. I thought his finish was really really well taken and a really important goal, but the build up there, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation here. Is it Pereiras or?
It's close enough, I think.
Yeah,
that just means I don't know how to actually say it.
Oh, I mean something along those lines. I mean, I'm never going to get that right, but kudos to him because he just took it from a standing start and just burnt Sydney FC on the outside, dribbled in, gassed them like real pace, like genuine pace, and then to find Lustica, beautiful goal. It's a very interesting goal in the sense that this is the kind of thing that Sydney has done to teams pretty much the whole season. I remember, you'll remember at one stage I called them cutback FC.
Yeah.
Because that's basically what Le Fondre has fed on all season. So it's very interesting going into finals that another team, a new team, is using some of their own tactics on them.
Yeah, look, it was an amazing goal, and like you say, Pereiras, his pace down that right hand side. If he gets a little bit more game time, I think he's going to be really exciting because he's dead set probably one of the quickest players in the league. Just needs to add, I guess, a little bit of quality and needs opportunities as well. I don't think he's put probably more than 2 or 3 starts together in his A-League career, so maybe next season's going to be a big year for him.
Mm-hmm.
A player who has been getting some opportunities of late has been Seb Pasquale, though, and he's been really good. And I tell you what, pinch yourself because the kid's only 20 as well, and geez, he's been good since he's been given a real run of matches in the post restart sort of era. Question from Sal before we move on, though. He wants to know, question for clarification, I guess. He wants to know, is the Premier's Plate viewed in the same way as the Supporters Shield in the MLS, as it doesn't matter because it's not the championship? So, yes, Sal, in short, yep. The Premier's Plate, or finishing, I guess, top of the league over the regular season, not quite the same. And I guess similar sporting culture in Australia as the US, where winning the grand final or the A-League Super Bowl is the big deal. So
it's like a bow with ribbons if you win the final. So if City are going to win the final and they have the Premier's Plate, then they'll talk about the double and all sorts of stuff. Yeah. But if they don't win, like, it just gets forgotten.
Yeah, and I think there's only been 2 occasions, or maybe 1 occasion, where first and second haven't played off in the grand final. So, yeah, I actually, and we'll get to this a little bit later as well, but I actually don't think it's going to be first versus second in the grand final this year. But look, we'll get to that in a little bit. But on to our final match, though. We have Newcastle playing against finals-bound Wellington. Jesse, what happened here? Because I mean, well, we've talked in pretty glowing terms about Wellington for pretty much the last month, and even before the shutdown. We've said how good Wellington have been, but it kind of all went wrong for them here, didn't it?
Yeah, you can't ignore the slump. I mentioned before, Sydney supporters be feeling a similar way going into the finals. A pretty poor run. It's quite interesting, actually, looking at the Phoenix, because this, like, City kind of proved the algorithm wrong, because City have done, like, regardless of their position, they've just kept going up and up and up, whereas Sydney and Wellington have kind of plateaued. And you look at the teams that finished below the top 6, Adelaide, Newcastle, Wanderers, these teams all kind of put in a decent run in the last few games. And I just feel like, without sounding too much like an apologist, because I'm a Phoenix fan, the very nature of this final system, particularly exacerbated by the fact that we've had a big break and we've had this sort of window of time to finish the round of robin games. It just kind of feels like it's not a coincidence that the Jets threw everything at them, and Adelaide had a good run of form, and these teams that had something to play for were just so much better than teams like Sydney and Wellington in this last couple of weeks. Like I can't get a read on Wellington's form, like I can't get a read on Sydney's form, because it's kind of like this is the kind of league where any team can beat anyone. And if one team's kind of like not as committed as the other team, then there's a high chance they'll lose. And the Phoenix got found out, particularly against Newcastle, worse than previous games. Like the Phoenix have had a few draws that they should have won and things like that. But this was a game where they were well beaten and deserved to be beaten. I think there was one goal, I think it was the first goal from Newcastle, where it felt like they had the ball in possession for like a minute and a half, and then just picked their time to cut through straight through the middle. It was an impressive goal. It was a very patient goal from Newcastle. So I guess the way I look at it is I kind of just feel like Newcastle probably deserved more praise than Wellington getting stick, because I think Newcastle that was a really comprehensive performance.
Look, in this one, Newcastle they sat quite deep, I guess, for a lot of the game, and Wellington were quite happy to sort of keep striking the ball around. But it was a tactic that worked for Newcastle, and I guess that it's been working for them recently as well. They've been in the best form of any team post restart, and they've got 24 points from the final 11 matches. That's post and pre lockdown as well.
Getting clean sheets as well.
Well, exactly. Their third straight clean sheet as well. So the Jets under Carl Robinson are really laying a really strong foundation for next season, and I think they can be really proud of how they finished this season as well.
Yeah, agreed.
You concerned for Wellington heading into finals though?
Yeah, I'm concerned, but I'm also pretty excited because the poor run of form recently, I guess it's important to sort of sit back and remember this is a team that a lot of people had as the wooden spooners, and we finished third. And we have a team that if they don't turn up, they'll probably get steamrolled. But if they do turn up and they do play to their potential, I feel like they've given every team in the competition a run this season. And they won't be expected to beat the likes of Sydney and that sort of thing, even if there's no guarantee they even get to the likes of Sydney, because Perth's a very good team. But if they play against these teams, they're not expected to be the better team. So I just feel like if they can just I always think it's important in finals to have a couple of aces up your sleeve. So I feel like he's been toying with De Vere and figuring out what he wants to do. I hope he actually has a couple of plans up his sleeve. So after 30 minutes, it's not working, he should change it up. He's got big different strikers and Ball and Hooper. He's got different strategies that he could use. Some of it might work, some of it might not. But Perth are a very good team. I've got a lot of respect for Perth, and I'm actually very surprised they finished 6th. Maybe that's to do with Castro being out. I don't know, but they're not a team that I'm looking forward to playing in this kind of elimination final, because if they turn up, they're a very, very good team.
Fair point. Look, it's probably no better time than right now then to crack straight on into the elimination finals, which they're going to be held on Saturday and Sunday, both out of Bankwest Stadium in Parramatta. Fantastic venue. There won't be any fans in either of the matches though, because they're both away fixtures. So disappointing, I guess, for the fans of those teams. But look, hopefully the play on the pitch makes up for it. First up, Wellington is going to be playing Perth. It's a distance derby, and both teams are playing at least a 4-hour flight away from home. So it's kind of the ultimate distance derby. As I was said before, Wellington are in terrible form. They've had one win in their last 6 since the restart. They've got the worst points per game, which is probably the best metric to measure teams by at the moment, since teams have played different amount of games in the lockdown. But they've got the worst points per game of all the teams that qualified for the finals. But look, bizarrely, Perth aren't much better. They've had 2 wins but 4 losses since lockdown. So
yeah.
Who's going to win the race to the bottom here out of these two teams? Someone's got to win eventually.
Well, what's the deal with extra time? So does it go to extra time or straight to penalties?
No, well, good question. It hasn't come up, but I'm going to assume it goes extra time and then penalties.
That'd be really interesting because, yeah, you've got a team like Perth who either wins or loses, and you've got a team like Wellington who hasn't won for a while but can definitely grind out a draw. So being an elimination final and assuming that they're going to be a bit cagey, do we see a draw in extra time unfolding? I mean, you'd be surprised if out of the 2 games this weekend, we don't see at least one game go to extra time. Out of the 2, I wouldn't be surprised if this game goes to extra time. I can see it being very tight and cagey. Perth, I feel like Perth have got the firepower to outgun Wellington, but Wellington have been a crafty team all year. And if they win this game, it'll be down to the tactics. I think some of the players, like we mentioned Davila before, but he hasn't necessarily been as hot as he was at the start of the season. So there's a few players there that have been slightly underperforming, can't get a read on their form. So there's I know a lot of people back home, back in Wellington and stuff, are very excited for this game, and even the run of form hasn't sort of deterred them. They're just pumped to be in a elimination final. I remember back when Paul Eiffel was banging in goals, and
it feels like a long time ago.
Oh man, a lifetime ago. But I remember one of the home finals we had was just like packed. It was a hell of a game.
The Wellington fans really get around the team when there's a big game on, and I love that. Like it's I guess a little bit similar to Perth, and like you don't necessarily see it to the same degree in some other cities, but yeah, like it's great to see the Nux fans get around the Phoenix.
Big game.
What, Jesse? Before we move on to the next match, what's your pick? What's your score prediction? Try to be objective, mate.
I have to go with the Knicks. I can't curse them, and I reckon it's 1-1, goes to extra time, and the Knicks on penalties.
Ooh, that would be spicy indeed. All right, I wouldn't be surprised if this one's low scoring as well. Like we said, both teams aren't in great form. For me, this is kind of it's a bit of a clash between Popper versus Davila, and seeing who comes out and top in sort of that sort of tactical battle between those two. I think Wellington are going to get through. I think Perth without Castro I think they're going to struggle here. So I think it's going to be a really good match, though. I'm really excited for this one. Before we move on to the next match, though, Brisbane versus Western United on Sunday, Evan Stragan mentions about how VAR has been brought back for the final series. Jesse, are you happy about that?
I'm pretty conflicted about it because, like I've said before in the past, that I've never been massively anti-VAR, but never necessarily really pro-VAR, just on its own. In the A-League, I'm still scarred by that final where the VAR didn't work.
It's never worked. It's never worked.
And Robbie Slater with the goal line technology, but that kind of stuff still scars me a little bit. But I think for the sake of not having a referee screw this up, even though that completely contradicts everything I just said about VAR being just as unreliable. But for the very sake of a referee decision not being the difference in a team getting knocked out of the competition this year, I suppose it's a good decision. The only thing that's weird about it, as we all know, is that it's been so driven by cameras and how many, like what the broadcasting's allowed them to do, that they haven't been able to do it since COVID, in the post-COVID break. So it's kind of like, it's just very odd for a competition to not have VAR and then bring it in just for the finals. It's just a strange situation.
Mate, totally agree, mate. Like there's 5 matches left. It's just bizarre. It's the A-League, and it's why we love it, I guess.
but as I said, if it prevents a howler, and the right decisions made, I think that will be vindication.
Fair enough, mate. All right, let's move on to the final match, though, of the weekend, which is going to be Brisbane playing Western United. In this one, Colby and Damo's Brisbane Roar, they're going to be reunited with Besart Berisha, his first Australian club. Now, Where question from Colby here, who wants to know, given this one's at a neutral venue, which corner is best going to knee slide at when he inevitably scores?
God, jeez, the man's a compass. He's got to find the corner that points towards the brown snake in Brisbane. So wherever that is, I can't. My geography in Sydney's not very good, so I wouldn't actually know which corner it is. But yeah, to answer your question, Colby, whatever corner is closest direction towards Brisbane.
I just want to see him, like, when he scores a hat trick, I just want to see Bez just knee slide on halfway, just right in front of the Raw bench. Oh, wow.
Just knee slide into eternity. Yeah. I tell you what, in that stadium, there's a very high chance that he would go straight into the seats, because we didn't mention it before. You talked about it being a great venue. It is a great venue, but it's still an ice rink. And not to take a rugby league expression, but any player that changes direction on the surface is going to have an advantage.
Amen. Look, West United are by far the form team heading into the finals with 4 wins, 2 losses since the restart. I've got them down as hot favourites for this one. I think it's going to be a really interesting battle, given that West United, they're looking great going forward. Obviously, they got Bess Brusher up front. They've got Diamante supplying, putting the rounds into the chamber for him to shoot off. But Brisbane are a pretty tricky side, and I think Colby and Damo, I think they'll be pretty not comfortable, but I think they'll be confident of Brisbane's chances headed into this. I think as long as it stays 0-0, I think Brisbane are well within a shot, and I wouldn't be surprised if West United get a little bit frustrated as the game rolls on as well.
I just hope that whoever gets through that game and the Phoenix game are the right teams to play against the teams in the next round, because there's just nothing worse. I thought about this morning with the Champions League. It's just, there's nothing worse than a team that's just a giant killer team, has gone through the competition, plays that final as their semi-final, and then it just gets destroyed in the next round. And I guess the question for the Raw is, if they did get past the Woo, would the Woo or the Raw have a better chance of knocking off the next team? I mean, that's, for the competition's sake, that's the question. As I said, I'm not going to wind up the Raw fans too much, but I do question whether or not they could go all the way. Yeah.
Fair enough.
That's my opinion.
All right, mate. Come on. Let's not keep the listeners on hold for any longer. What's your score prediction for this one? Brisbane versus West United.
I think this will finish in regular time, and I think a 2-1 win to the Woo.
To the Woo, you reckon Bez with the on the double?
I think our Alex Tobin medal winner might pop up. So yeah.
So he's been progressively trying to chip the goalkeeper from further and further out. Are we going to see Diamante try and chip what's his name? Jamie, help me out here. Jamie Young.
Jamie Young. One of the top 3 goalkeepers based on form, as per Colby's pod the last couple weeks.
Look, full disclosure, about 2 minutes ago, my hamstring cramped up. So that's why I was possibly pulling some funny faces a few minutes ago. I was trying to hold it together, but that's why I've lost my place. But Jamie Young, he are we going to see Diamante try to chip Jamie Young from like 50 or 60 meters this time?
I said this a few weeks ago. I don't think he needs to keep chipping to be effective. Now everyone thinks he's going to chip. He just has to tuck it into the bottom corner. Too easy.
Yeah, exactly. He can run it like a good 50 meters closer, and no one will suspect it.
Yeah, exactly. Finesse.
Oh dear. All right. I reckon. I think the Western United, the Woo. I think the Woo are going to get up here. I think it'll be massive for them. I think they're going to be pumped. And Diamante, geez, like he is the player that you would want at that club for this game. He's got so much experience. I think they're going to be pumped up for this. All right. But look, that pretty much wraps things up for this episode. Don't forget don't forget to hit subscribe on our YouTube channel, and of course, as you probably already know, don't forget to follow us on all the socials: Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Look, finally, one final plug for Soccer Aid next Friday. Please donate to the GoFundMe if you can. But look, until next time, enjoy the football.